Well, I was a very selfish, arrogant, proudful buffoon. I I hated people. I hated the poor. I hated the homeless because I used to look at them as they're the bums. They're the losers. I would say, come on, put your life together and do something useful with your life. Um, but it was a long process. I met this woman. Women got amazing power. I met this Christian woman, and she was telling me about God. She was telling me about Jesus. She was saying to me that there is a better way to live. It's a life of peace and hope and freedom. I was a slave. I was a drunkard. I was not good.
Mm.
And she was telling me about this God, and I rejected it over and over again. But I loved her. I married her. And then eventually she got through me. There is a scripture in the Bible that says, even if a man conquers the whole world but loses his own soul, he profits nothing. Because in the end of the day, eternity is a long time, and those few years on this side of eternity goes so fast. And people are losing their lives, they're wasting their lives pursuing something that they cannot take with them. It's like chasing the wind. You will be chasing that wind until the day you die, and it's over. I
Mhm.
used to be the one that was chasing the wind, but now I am chasing God because my reward will come from Him. I
So
want to hear
how
one day, you
sorry,
know,
how did that happen? How did you go from one to the other?
well, I was a very selfish, arrogant, proudful buffoon. I I hated people. I hated the poor. I hated the homeless because I used to look at them as they're the bums. They're the losers. I would say, come on, put your life together and do something useful with your life. But it was a long process. I met this woman. Women got amazing power. I met this Christian woman, and she was telling me about God. She was telling me about Jesus. She was saying to me that there is a better way to live. It's a life of peace and hope and freedom. I was a slave. I was a drunkard. I was not good.
Mm.
And she was telling me about this God, and I rejected it over and over again. But I loved her. I married her. And then eventually she got through me. And we got son that was born in 1999. I remember I changed my entire life. I stopped drinking. I stopped doing bad things. I made peace with my wife and with everybody else. And in 2000, my son was born, our first child, and he was born with a heart on opposite side, smashed lungs. He was born dead. They brought him back to life. But that was a moment in my life that I realized that there are things more important than business, more important than money. There are certain things that I cannot buy. I cannot buy happiness. I cannot buy peace. I cannot buy freedom. I cannot buy those things. I cannot be a happy man just because I have money. And I cannot buy life. When my son was dying, I couldn't buy myself from this trouble. I couldn't just pay enough money to get out of this trouble. There was someone more powerful than money. And I realized that I need to make peace with him. And I did. It's a long story. You
Yeah.
can watch it. It's featured on a documentary on my life called Street Advocate. Street
Okay.
Advocate is on YouTube for free. You can watch it. So it takes me 1 hour and a half to tell the story. So I don't want to
I'll
take that
just
time.
I'll just link it here.
But that's what changed my life. It was a graduate process. My wife fought for me for 7 years until finally I took the knee before God. And then when my son was born, and the sickness and the trouble and the doctors that said he's not going to live, that we have to unplug him, that there is no hope whatsoever. That's where that was the moment in my life that I started to think outside of my sphere of money, business, clients, drinking. And I started to ask questions, what's really important. And I made my peace with God. I
Mm.
said, either my son lives or dies. I will serve you for the rest of my life. And nothing happened, no earthquake until the next day. When I went to the hospital, it turned out that my son was completely healed. They've called my son a star baby, a miracle baby that they said, this is a miracle. This baby cannot breathe, but is breathing, cannot, should not live, but is alive. And called a symposium on doctors and declared that my son is a miracle
Wow.
from God, that God healed him. It was impossible for him to be alive, but he was alive. And all of those different things, me stopping, being an alcoholic, stopping doing all those different things and seeing that miracle, how powerful this God was. All the doctors, all the experts didn't give him any chance of survival. But when I made my peace with God, within a second, he heals my son. I have a surgeon's report, and it says that when they opened him up, there was not even a trace of the lung, and the heart was on the opposite side. They couldn't fix him. But the next day, he was breathing on his own, and the doctors were puzzled. They couldn't understand what happened. So when I saw that, I said, wow, I was missing in my life. I was missing rejecting God, rejecting his mercy, rejecting his love, rejecting his freedom
Mm.
all
Yeah.
my life, and I was missing so much. I want to serve him. I want to work for him. I finally have found a boss worthy to work for. And I said to him, God, do with me as you please. I'll work for you. I'll serve you for the rest of my life. And I started a church that is now known as Street Church, that feeds the homeless people. We have about 40 churches like this in different continents, different countries. And that's what I do. I feed the poor, I preach the gospel, I give people hope, and I advocate. That's what I do. I advocate for human rights. I speak against dictatorship, communism, socialism. I I do everything in my power to give people hope. If I can summarize what I do, that's what I do. I give people hope for a better tomorrow, and that hope comes from God.